Mark Cuban has been one of the best surrogates for Kamala Harris during this entire campaign. Not only has he joined the vice president at rallies, not only has he hosted his own town hall, but he has also been going on the news channels in which Democrats don't often appear to talk about the economy and how Kamala Harris would be better for business. And of course, one of those outlets is the Fox propaganda outlet, where Mark Cuban recently appeared on Brian Kilmeade's radio show to discuss the ways that Donald Trump has already failed in the economy and the way that Kamala Harris wants to invest in the middle class and make sure we are building from the middle out. He did such an incredible job, and you can kind of tell that Brian Kilmeade, halfway through the interview, is regretting bringing Mark Cuban on because of the way he shut down him and all of those MAGA talking points. And we're going to watch that clip, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now let's get into this clip.
Can we talk about another area of your expertise is the economy. The Trump tax cuts are about to evaporate. Are you, if they don't get renewed, they're just going to go away. Are you for that, getting the corporate rate up to 35%? All the income tax brackets have benefited. On average, Americans making between $15,000 and $50,000 received a tax cut of between 16 and 26%. While those making $50,000 to $100,000 received a tax break of 15 to 17%. Are you for letting the Trump tax reform evaporate?
So I'm for the approach. I'm for the approach that Vice President Harris is taking. What she has said is that anybody making under $400,000, their taxes will not go up, and for 100 million of those people, their taxes will go down. And that applies also to
not unless she does something now. She's got to do something.
Well, of course, she's got to do something. All Donald Trump's programs, he's got to do something as well. But she has said that, and realize that of the 33 million companies in this country, 99% of them are passed through. So for 99% of the CEOs and the entrepreneurs that are out there, that make $400,000 or less, their taxes are only going to stay the same or go down. And to me, that's a great policy.
When you look at when you say pass through, what is that?
So if you have a subchapter S company, if you have a limited liability, a solo entrepreneur, a sole proprietorship, what that means is it's your personal taxes that are taxed. Your business taxes are taxed as if they're your personal taxes.
Okay.
And so that everybody, that means almost every business in the country is going to benefit.
So if you just look at performance, unless she just wants to say I had nothing to do and Joe Biden never look at me, because when pressed about performance, she's like, I'm vice president. When say what she's going to do, while I wasn't there, I'm brand new. When pressed what she did as senator, don't count that. Count what I did as attorney general when it comes to being tough on the border, but don't count what I did on vice president. So it's hard to keep up. But when it comes to performance, if you're going to judge the administration, 401ks lost an average of 9%. $12,000 just because of inflation. And if you could say
no. Now you're manipulating numbers, Brian.
No, go ahead. Tell me how I did what I did wrong.
I mean, because most people's 401ks have stocks, and the stocks are setting record highs every single day. And you're seeing the median net worth of the country go up significantly. And so, and you're seeing real wages increase beyond inflation now. So you're seeing people's 401ks go up, and that's a great thing.
But not as it relates to inflation. They said if you take inflated rate, you say 401ks adjusted for inflation lost $12,000 or 9%. The growth was 11,000.
And who published that, Brian? Who and when did they publish that? Because with the record highs now, I'm just telling you that data is wrong.
Okay, it was from my brain room because I asked for everything. The other thing is, no, our brain room's great.
No, they're amazing. I don't discount that at all.
So the pandemic hits and there's a lot of spending. I got it. But even though Jason Furman, Steve Ratner, and Larry Summers came out and said, we don't need the rescue package, she did it, or he did it, and she did it, whatever you want to decide. So trillions of dollars goes into the economy, and that was the beginning of rapid inflation. And then you got the Inflation Reduction Act, which they laughed at and said it really wasn't inflation reduction. It's actually a portion of the new Green Deal. Now, I can't believe that Mark Cuban would say that these are good moves. And if you're looking to see if past his prologue, you would think that she's going to do more of this, and how the role that played in all prices going up 20% on her reign. Your thoughts?
So, sure, a couple of things. One, that wasn't the start of inflation. So that's not correct.
When did inflation start?
So inflation really started back in April of 2020 remember right at the beginning of the pandemic when there was all lockdowns, the price of gas was $1.85 everywhere, and prices seemed to be going lower. At that point in time, the oil companies went to Donald Trump, who was president at the time, and said, look, it's not sustainable for us to have oil prices as low as they are. They were at record lows, and we even saw negative oil prices for a while. And what they asked Donald Trump to do, and Donald Trump did, was go to Saudi Arabia and Russia and say, look, you guys have to reduce your production, because if you don't, then our oil industry is going away. And as it turns out, the oil industry would have got pandemic money anyways, PPP money. But he said, okay, let's do this deal. He went to Putin and MBS and said, please reduce production. They did. And that was, I'm not saying it's the full cause of inflation, but that was when inflation started. Because when you reduce the production, right, and demand starts to grow as more people leave their houses, the price of gas goes up quickly. So the point being that Donald Trump had the choice between helping the oil companies or keeping gas prices low for the American people. He chose to help the oil companies. That was the beginning of inflation.
Well, here's the thing. If you're a guy that became a billionaire for a reason because you're great with numbers. When he was when he left office, inflation was at 1.9%. If you say that happened in May, so you're saying it was a rubber band? And the rubber band pulled back and they just let go when Trump left office? You don't think they're putting $2 trillion into in 2021 when Biden took over, and the $7 trillion he put in, that we basically had to put toner into a printer?
No, you're right. That when Biden continued to spend, that definitely influenced inflation considerably. But you asked the question, when did it start? And so on one hand, Donald Trump says, look, we're drill. We're going to cut the price of gas, and that's going to reduce everything else. The opposite also works. When you when you take it the other way, it influences inflation, and that was the start of inflation.
My opinion, like I said, Mark Cuban, such an incredible messenger for Kamala Harris, talking about her economic agenda, talking about the ways that Donald Trump has failed, tearing apart those MAGA talking points, and he's doing it in a place in which there are still a lot of undecided voters out there, whether it be soft Republicans or right-leaning independents. Those are the folks that Mark Cuban is talking to. But like I said, it's not just Fox that he's going on. He's all over the place, making sure he's talking about Kamala Harris and calling out Donald Trump like he did in this clip right here.
She's got a lot in the business world that's supporting her, obviously. But more so than in the past, you really see, especially Silicon Valley, serious business people who are supporting Donald Trump. What is going on with that?
So there's two pieces there. A lot of them started their support when Joe Biden was the candidate. And it's understandable, Joe Biden did not have much outreach to the Silicon Valley community, to technology community, no matter where they were located. And that turned a lot of people off. But now when Kamala comes in, she has that outreach. She's talking to them. And I think you've seen people start to say, okay, well, maybe Kamala is better because of all the different reasons I don't like Trump. That's one. Number two, if you remember back to when Donald Trump was first elected, we talked a lot about the adult in the room and people that we were going to be dependent on to kind of keep him within the baselines.
Right.
And I think I translate that to mean there were people who thought they could manipulate him. And I think that's what's happened a lot with a lot of the higher end Silicon Valley folks. They know they're smarter than him. They know they can manipulate him. And if they give them money, they can buy him.
Is that what's going on with Elon Musk? I mean, how did Elon Musk become such a huge Trump supporter?
I don't know.
I mean, you know Elon better than most.
No, I don't. I hardly know him at all.
Really?
I've only talked to him like twice in my entire life.
I mean, the way he tweets about you all the time.
Yeah, I know, it's funny.
Like...
He calls me a racist, calls me this. I don't care. It's Twitter. It's not real world.
So what's your sense? I mean, I
think he thinks he can manipulate him. I mean, if you listen to the spaces he did on Twitter with Donald Trump, he kept on trying to throw softballs at him for Donald to answer when Donald couldn't answer them, like nuclear, right? Yeah, nuclear energy is not nuclear war. And
I am so glad that Mark Cuban is raising this point, because it's something we've begun to talk about more and more on this show, the Silicon Valley influence over the Republican Party, the part that the Peter Thiels and Elon Musks of the world had in choosing J.D. Vance as Donald Trump's running mate. The amount that crypto PACs have spent in this election is staggering. It is over half of all corporate donations coming from cryptocurrency PACs, and that should be pretty frightening to us all, the way that tech wants to influence Donald Trump, especially, like Mark Cuban said, because those people think that they can manipulate him. And if we've seen anything from Elon Musk's involvement in the campaign, that is incredibly terrifying. But it wasn't the only thing that Cuban called out Donald Trump for in this ABC interview. He went on to call out his rhetoric as well in this clip right here. Name calling, in a normal world, the two parties would get together and say, let's just stop this name calling, right? Let's just focus on the issues. But this is not a normal world. Donald Trump is not a normal candidate. And I think it's not a stretch to call Donald Trump a fascist. You talked about the people in his cabinet that spoke the same way. He's talking about the enemy within and going after people using the military. He's talked about mass deportations where, they'll stop people on the street and check their papers. What does that remind you of? Talking about, knocking on doors and pulling people out and deporting them. What does that remind you of? That's pretty damn close to fascism, if not the definition of fascism. So at the risk of going full Shark Tank, Alash, it's clips like this right here that make Mark Cuban such an incredible surrogate for Kamala Harris, really just getting to the truth in the basic bones of this argument against Donald Trump. This is not someone that we would think should be a leader in any capacity, whether it's the coach of a youth sports team, whether it's someone running your local gas station. You couldn't trust Donald Trump in any position, and that in which he had to be in charge of anything. Hell, he couldn't get the McDonald's job that he pretended to have, because he is a felon. And I love the way that Mark Cuban is making this argument. It is important that we continue to talk about it. Important that we continue to talk about all of those around Donald Trump who observed him very closely, more so than anyone else. And their takeaway from their time with Donald Trump was, this guy is insane. And he should never be anywhere near the Oval Office again. We're going to be talking about that every single day on the show. Seems like Mark Cuban's going to be talking about it every single day. I really appreciate that from him. But if you want to support us, Mark Cuban seems all good. If you want to support this show, though, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.